Hi YouTube, this is Matt here from Vectis 3D Models. This is an instruction video for the Metropolitan Railway Chesham set of carriages. They will be supplied in a set of 3 with an additional 4th, which will be an additional composite to make up the preserved set of Metropolitan carriages as based on the Bluebell Railway. These carriages have a long range of history, so have various modifications, and I'm hoping to bring variations to the design later on, maybe early next year, in terms of the push-pull and the electric ones of the 1940s, which were converted from these. This set is based on the 1920s build by Ashbury, and these are 3D printed by me and are based on the original set which were on Shapeways some time ago. I have built mine back in 2014, but of course now these have all been modified, changed and updated to help you have the ultimate and the best model available. So I'll take you through what we have. So we basically have the main body shell here at the back. This is a brake third. We have the torpedo roof vents, for buffers, for floor, which is one piece, seating, and also the bogies. Now we have various types of bogies available, which go on various sets of carriages and various floors, and these can also be modified and changed for the electric versions with the shoes or not. These also will be fitted with wheel bearings, and these will take the 13mm wheels which you can usually find from Hornby or Bachmann. I will now take you through the build of one of these carriages and let you know any parts or supplies that you may need to buy to build these, such as wire, wheels, plastics and paints, as well as some transfers. So before we start off on this kit, we should always check the kit for defects or any issues that you may see or any problems that you may have when your kit arrives. So what we mean by it is any damage, so any damage that's been picked up on basically removals of supports, any cracks, any problems where the supports have been pulled off, or anything that is missing. So this kit you've already been through on the first section, so basically details, buffers, floor, body, bogies, or anything missing which you expect to find, like for seats for example. So once you've checked all that, you've emailed me any missing items or any problems that you may see, we'll go back into it. So for the start off on this one, we'll start off with the chassis and then build our way up to the body shell. Okay, so now you've checked hopefully all of your models and bits and pieces that are in the kit, you can now proceed to start it. So we'll start on the lower part, the chassis or the floor. So we have the floor here. This is all one resin piece. You can see it has slightly bowed. I'm not too concerned because the screw holes and the attachment holes are at the end, so it should pull it straight. Now this material will have some slight flexibility, a bit like plastic. This is ABS resin, so it has a little bit more stiffness and a little bit more flexibility. However, if you do want to try and straighten this out, you're quite welcome to in some hot or warm-ish water, which should make the resin slightly more pliable. Now once you've done that, I've made it warmed up and a little bit more pliable, you can then lay it flat, put some weight on the ends and actually put it back to where it was. What I have done in the past is also overstretched it slightly so it was bent the other way. So just putting something in the middle and putting some weight on each end and bowing it the opposite way. This isn't too bad. So basically go around clean it up, you can see there's been some support debris there which still needs a bit of cleaning, especially around this area here. This has all been revised since the 2014 versions, all been thickened up, supported a bit better, and a little bit more structure. All the sides have had additional parts fitted, like the little supports for the footboard, step boards, and rivets all the way along the sides, as well as 2 holes here on the edge here, or the side I should say, for the step that goes up to the guards compartment. We have the close connecting end and the other rear end which couples up to the locomotive. Going over to the bogies, you can see this one I've already fitted with some wheels. These are just your standard wheels. I think these are about 13mm approximately. These bogies should come pre-fitted with bearings. You can see them in here. You can paint this with basically some plastic based paint, and that will be absolutely fine. So satin or matte black. You can spray it in a plastic based primer, which you can get from a very well known automotive shop called Halfords, and then spray that in black, and that should be all okay to go. These are attached via screws in the centre, you can see, and the screws, I hope, will be provided in the kit. With that said, let's start putting it together. So moving on with the Metropolitan chassis here for the carriage. The brake carriage, we can see here it's slightly bowed, but it does need some warm water just to bring it back into shape, and you can overbend it back the other way. It should, once it's all been screwed and bolted together, it should pull it flat. It has a slight bow that way on the underside, but again, some warm water should help that a little bit as well. It is the problem with resin, it does bow and warp a little bit. So on this you will need to clean it up slightly. You can see it's already been mostly done on this side. You'll need some needle files to do that, and maybe some flush snips just to take off most of it. Be careful around the dynamo and the brake cylinders, or vacuum cylinders I should say. On the other side it needs cleaning off. You can see I've already done that with a flat file here. You need to clean up the step boards as well, where the supports have been holding it at an angle, and that should come up quite nicely. This is ABS resin, so it should be quite tough, but not if dropped on a hard surface, so please be careful. You'll need a drill as well to attach your buffers. These are the longer type of buffers. On the carriages themselves, they all have slightly different lengths, so these are the brake buffers, the long ones. The composites in the middle will have short ones to enable closer coupling, and then on the end, the all third, that has an odd set of buffers, so you have 2 long and 2 short for whatever reason. That is off the preserved sets, which I've spotted those and I photographed, so I'll know basically that's correct. So you'll need those, and you'll need your snips to take them off again. You can glue these in with some Loctite or some super glue, or just general all-purpose glue. So I'll get that all set up, ready to go, and I'll affix those to the actual chassis. So here we are with the chassis on my sanding block, but it's just best to keep it straight and level and keep the buffers away from the flat surface. So the buffers are attached, and you can see the chassis is now actually or floor has been straightened with some hot water, so it's no longer bowing in any direction. So you can do it, it's not a problem. The bogies aren't fixed, need some self-tapping screws for those, which I'll get shortly, still haven't arrived yet. You can see on this end here, this is basically the end which couples up with carriages, etc. And you can add some brass, some really nice brass etched coupling hooks. You can get these from Wizard models, not mainly trains as they're no longer around. And these are MT356 and you get 20 of them. Quite useful for wagons, kits and various other things for detailing. We have also some brackets here for breakaway chains, which you can use some fine chain for that and just leave them dangling either way. A bit of detail either way. I might also throw in some vacuum pipes as well, because I've got some which I've made up a long time ago, but you can get castings for those if you wish, and I'll add that into the suppliers list. Now also, while I'm on the chassis or floor, turn this around, on this end obviously I've got a bogie with a NEM pocket on. Now you can see there's a hole or an opening here which I use as a drawbar. On my original set I built in 2014, I have some brass piece with two holes in either way, and I've sort of worked out the distance between each carriage. Now you can do that, I'm still sort of working on that myself, seeing if I can get some etches commissioned for that to be done. If I remove this, you can see there's a post here behind the actual buffer housing, you can see there, and that goes through, loops around there. You can either put a big a screw on top of that or something with a washer. What I was going to design as well is a pin, but I think really people will probably go with the NEM pocket solution, but that option is available, and there are some blanked bogies without the NEM pocket if you wish. And for those who want to use coupling hooks and screw links, you can do that as well. So a few options open to you. So that really is the end of the chassis. It just requires some painting, but this one will stay as it is, so it's an example to show you. So here we are, this is part 2. We're on to the body shell. So just to recap, we have now finished the running chassis, floor, 2 bogies, buffers on each end, and also the coupling hook. Now we haven't put on any ancillary parts like the vacuum pipes, etc., mainly because I just want to finish it first and then start adding the other bits to it. So just to make sure we get the fits and all the correct parts in the right place. Now on the body kit itself you get the body shell. This is the 1920s condition brake third. So it hasn't been converted to electric with the bigger windows at the end for the driving compartment. We have the seating and also the torpedo vents here. Now that's all you get in terms of the printed kit. You need to source various bits along the way, and if you read the sort of brief instructions, it will give you instructions where to get those parts from. So you have the torpedo vents for the roof, but you still need to find the rain strip. Now I haven't printed them on this for 2 reasons. One, they can end up quite messy and not look too nice because of the stepping printing process, so that hasn't been done, and also all the window bars and also the grab handles along the doors and the end of the brake here, which you'll need 0.45 brass wire for. But as we go through, I will tell you these sections as we go along. The best tools to have are basically a file at this point, because we'll need to go around and clean this, make sure any burrs or any supports that are left over need to be cleaned, and then we can sand the roof because it's quite a nice flat section. Most of the supports were on the roof, so to give you a nice clean section or a nice flat section to clean off. So that's why that's been done. So with that said, we will now move on to the cleaning as well as the detailing. So onto the cleaning up. This is going to be quite quick and basic. So basically we need to flat off the roof. You can see on this footage I've already have done. I've done this with a file, but then you can go over it with a sanding block with some very fine wet and dry sandpaper, and that will just take the sort of dimples off where the supports once were. You'll probably need to re-drill the roof holes for the roof vents, which you can see here, but that'll be at a later point. I'm not going to put the roof vents on till pretty much the very last thing, so I don't break them off or hit them. You'll also need to mark out where your roof rain strips will go, but we'll feature that in a bit. But mainly it's just cleaning, and you'll need to go around this body shell with a needle file, which you can see here, and just take off any rough bits on the edges of the windows and anywhere else along the top. You'll probably find a few on the ends, and on the ends here you can see here I've cleaned this up already. I've tried to avoid any sensitive areas and the detailed areas which may be affected by cleaning. So it's mainly in areas which have a straight edge, like the windows themselves. You can go around them, clean them up, and make sure they're nice and square and clean. You will then need to go on to drilling some holes for the handrails. So here you can see little dimples, or little indentations I should say, for drill bits. 0.45 here, and there's also a bar which goes across the window, the door window, to stop people leaning out from here to here. Those would be 0.5 of a mil. So you can also add your handrails here on the corners, and also around the back here, which go from this point here to just underneath the roof here. You can see 2 holes there. Now on this vehicle as well, on the ends they have electrical connectors to power the lights. Now I'll mark it on here and show you where it goes, but you can buy these separately from basically Wizard Models again. So create your shopping list while you're going, and these are just jumper cables which go from a panel here. A small hole will be required, stick them on, and away you go. Clean the casting and all that kind of thing. Now on the inside you can see here, this is where all our seats go into. Just make sure they're nice and clean from any support material. You can also see there's holes along the partitions in the centre. That is just in case if you want to add lighting, and you've got a nice big compartment here to hide any batteries or anything like that to power it, and you can probably link it through the floor to another carriage with a 2-pin connector. So that's basically what we have to do and what we have to work from. So I'll do some of that now, and that'll be ready to move on to the next stage. So onto the drilling part, I thought I'd just show you some bits that I use. So these are a set of drill pieces from 0.3 all the way to 1.6 mil. I use a small pin vise, they come in various types, Archimedes screw, this type, and a couple of the plain nickel silver ones with a vise at one end which tightens the drill bit, etc. And they're quite inexpensive, and any modeler should really have one. So as already stated, you'll have to go through the body shell. The doors are 0.5, the grab handles are 0.45. Coming around to the back, you also have 0.45 there, there and there. And I have also marked, which you might be able to see if I shine it into the light with pencil, some marks here and here, and also here. These are for the jumper cable castings, which are from Wizard, and I'll show you them not too far in the future of this video. So that said, I'll get on with the drilling. So I hope you can hear me over all the rain. I think we've got a thunderstorm coming over. So all the holes have been drilled along the doors, 0.5mm, so that's across each door. 0.45 on the grab handles, which are all the way along, brake or guard door as well, and then the ones around the ends here, as well as the ones on the edge here and here. Now I haven't quite done the jumper cable or the electric cable, but I've also done the holes across the emergency brake rigging here, which has the little flags on the end so everyone knows which compartment has been pulled, or which carriage has been pulled. Then along the roof, these holes have been opened up to 1.4mm, and you can see I've put a roof vent in there just to check the size and check that it fits okay. Moving on to these jumper cables. So these are the jumper cables. These are from Wizard. I'll put the number or the order number. This is the only ones I have left, so it's just enough for this carriage luckily. But you can see it needs just a small hole, about 0.5 maybe 0.6, and then a small hole drilling in the center behind under the steps, and then one just in line with the electrical box there, and then these can be attached and glued on. Next part we'll go through is the brass wire, which will need to be bent and fixed in place. Then we'll go on to roof strips and the roof itself, and we'll go on to the seating. So you join me back here on the bench, and you can see we have all the grab handles and the bars to stop people leaning out the windows on the drop lights on the doors. We have the grab handles on the guard compartment. You can see this one bends out slightly 90 degrees and curves round, then down, and does the same at the bottom. And the straight one on that edge, the end, you can see curves round to the top, and the two jumper cables moving round. You see again, same on this side. These haven't been glued in yet, but they will be once it's been painted, if you use your imagination. You can see the grab handles on the end as well. Quite simply added, slight flatten the surface, then drilling right in the centre. And of course, we've got the jumper cable on the end. So next, really, we need to finish the roof off. We need to put the rain strip on using some plastic strip, which I'll go into next. Then we'll go on to the interior. Okay, so just before we move on to the interior, I'll just finish the exterior. So we're going to finish off on the roof. As you can see, I've added the roof vents down the middle. These have been just glued on some all-purpose Loctite glue, or Bostik if you like, and I've also added the rain strip. Now I'm going to do the same on the other side. This is just number 111 from the Evergreen range. You can go 110 as well if you like. It's a little bit smaller, but and a little bit more square. I'd probably go for that personally, but this is what I have left in stock. So as you can see, we have our body shell all ready to go, and the seats ready to go in next. So if I move it off to one side and bring the body shell in, you can see on this roof I've already marked out the centre, which is here. I've already marked out a point here and a point there to start off with, and you can see I've also added some filler on along the holes before adding the roof vents, of course, and that's all just been sanded down nice and smoothly, but you can see all the divots and indentations that the supports leave, so it's best to go over it with some filler. So you got some evergreen strip, some plastic styrene strip. I've marked out from 1.5 from the edge millimeters from the edge inwards, and from here on the middle section, it's generally down to preference what you think looks about right. This is about just under 6mm, so 5.8mm, and you can see I've added a cross just here, so that's where I need to put the centre. So what I basically do is use a cocktail stick, which is what I've been pointing with, a little bit of super glue, so a little dab on that end, and working my way along, small dab in the middle and a small dab on the end, and then create the gentle curve while the super glue goes off from section to section. Then what I do to seal that in is use some varnish and just varnish that in so it doesn't move. So I'll just do that now so you can observe and see how it's done. There we have it, one finished roof. Now what I'll probably do is I'll varnish that to make sure it stays in place. This side seemingly isn't staying where I want it, but it's not too bad. And to be honest, they're not perfect on carriages if you go and have a look anyway. But it does help having a curve, a gentle curve, or an arc I should say, between each point. But with that done, what I'll probably do is take all the brass work off and then just give it a spray and primer just to protect it, and protect it from any UV, which of course warps things and destroys things like resin if it's UV cured, so it's best to cover it up as quickly as possible. Moving on to the inside, it needs a little bit of clean up from the roof fence along the centre, so if you want to add lighting, probably best to clean these up before priming, and then clean up the partitions. There's a few little bits that I haven't cleaned up yet, but we'll go into that straight away. And this is the seating for this brake. Always check that the ferrules have been added. These are threaded to 2mm or M2, and this end piece will have to be trimmed. This is just to support the back because it is quite flimsy material. So you trim the back off either with some cutters and a large file. Then what you do is snip off this support section here, because this will be permanently attached to the back wall of this carriage, because this will be a mounting point, as is the other end here, you can see. And if you have a composite or an all third from the range, which makes up a set as it were, you will have two lots of these, one on each end, and those will be both trimmed off from the rest. These will then, or are designed to slide into the partitions, so you can take them in and out if you wish. And then of course you'll need some plastic card, either some black plastic card or something like that, which will block the light out, and cut to a nice section which go under there. It only needs to be about 1mm thick, and then that'll be fine. So I'll do that and move on to basically the finishing stages. So here we are back with the carriage. You can see it's all been primed and done, and all the brass re-added. Now of course at this stage it would be painted, so your roof would be white and all the surrounds would be teak, and anything else would be painted accordingly. All the brass work left brass, apart from the handrails on the ends and the corners. So once that's all been painted, what you will need to do is then glaze it. So on the inside, add some acetate sheets on the inside across the windows and the door. You might need to cut them into small rectangles for each window, especially the ends and the brake guard door. Once you've done that and fixed them in place with some glue and glaze, and painted the insides beforehand of course, So once that's all been done, you can then move on to the seating. Now in here you can see all the partitions which will go up to here. These will all take the seating, and on this back wall here, this will need the end seat of this one with the ferrules, so make sure they have the ferrules already installed. So you can add your lighting if you wish, that's up to you. But moving on to the seats. The seats will need to be painted and that kind of thing. So these are third class, so these will be painted in green. First class is blue, so your composites with the first class will need to be painted blue and for third class green. With these you'll need to clean them up a little bit, make sure the supports and stuff have been removed and any stubs have been removed, as well as on the partitions in the carriage. And on this end here you can see we've got some strengthening beams here. Just use some flush cutters and just easily trim off a little bit at a time. There you go. And then clean that up with a file. And this one, this end one with the ferrules in, will go against the back wall of this carriage to have the mounting for the carriage body to the chassis, which will be attached with 2mm grub screws or 2mm cheese head screws. This end will have to be removed from the runner up here. These should all slot in, but if you do have problems you can install them separately. So these will slide in the partitions, this one will be glued on the back wall. So I'm just going to check that out now, and we'll see how we go. So you can see the last seat, or the end seat for the compartment, has been taken off, smoothed down. You can see the inserts in the base, and basically this will slot in to the back. It is quite a tight fit, so you may need to file either side of the seat to fit it in. As I say, this is a prototype, so things may be different when you get them. Now you can see there that is in. Now you can use a straight piece or a straight edge along the inside of the partitions just to make sure it's sitting at the correct level. So now I'm happy that fits, that's okay in there. You can see I will now glue that in place with some reasonably strong glue. Remember, you would have painted the insides by this point, as you have done with the seat as well, so that should be absolutely fine and good to go. So once that's installed and glued, then we can fit the central compartment seats. So as you can see, that is now glued in place with some araldite, so that's now clamped at the right level with the partitions and all good. We'll go on to these. Now you can install the seating like this. These just push into the partition walls, which also add strength to the body, keeping the spacing correct, etc., so it won't bow inwards, which is quite common on 3D printing, although this one has been very well behaved, and I've now sort of tuned the printers so it can be basically it won't warp at all. So this has been out in the sun and UV for the past few months, and I've also got another one running around which doesn't seem to be having any problems. So the body shells are pretty structurally rigid and pretty structurally sound, and there won't be any problems, hopefully. We can always say hopefully and keep fingers crossed, but they have been tested, and the one that's been running around has been reliable and is now approaching a year old and nothing's fallen off of it yet, twisted or warped. Now these seats you can cut up or install in one piece like so. I can't show you at the moment because the glue is drying. You have these partitions which they may be a little bit wide. Now I'm going to adjust them on the CAD to bring it in slightly by about 1/2 mm, so 0.25 on each side. If they are a little bit tight being pushed in, just give the slots a bit of a sand with some sandpaper. Just check all the partitions and make sure there's no bits left over from the supports or anything like that. Just make sure they're nice and smooth and clean. You should have done that already before installing all the glazing, which this one already has, which you can see in the light there. And of course you can paint these. Make sure you keep the slots clean. I'll probably just hand paint these personally. I paint these green for third class, blue for first. So once the glue is dry, I will show you installing these, and then really it's fitting this to the chassis in the background. You can see they're slotted into the partition. You press it down firmly. It shouldn't be too tight. If you don't do it square, they don't go in properly. Just give them a final push home. There you go, that keeps the spacing, keeps the structural integrity of the carriage body. Now, not included, but you can make these out of black plastic card, which is quite good for stopping any light leakage, if you have lights in, of course. So this is just a piece of plastic card, 151mm long by about 31mm wide, and then 2 cuts in each end for the obvious reason, to allow the screws to pass through. There we go. So that is now ready to be fitted into or onto the chassis in the background. So there we are, one complete Metropolitan Railway Ashbury carriage from the 1920s, or restored to the 1920s condition. So obviously these ran on steam on the Met like this. They're in preservation in this form as well. There will be other body shells available. So when they were made into sort of the push-pull or the electric sets, so a driving cab at each end, they'll be available in sets of 3. So this, a composite, and an all third. And again, as I say, these will be in this condition, so the 1920s condition, restored. There'll be an additional composite to make it up to a 4 carriage set, which will make it into preserved set as well, which runs on the Bluebell and also has run on steam on the Met recently, or within the last 10 years. These are printed in resin, of course, so you do need to take care. You need to find various materials, which I'll list, which are basically the brass wire, the plastic strip, the wheels, couplings, various little castings like the jumper cables on the end, and also the glazing, which is just basically acetate sheets, so not too difficult to find. So if you have any questions, please leave them below. The price range will be around about 150, 160, with the additional carriage around about £50 available separately. As I say, there will be other types of carriage body available. So the later type, when they were converted, push-pull, and also had motor bogies, one of which is still in the Transport Museum at Covent Garden upstairs. I think it's number 500, can't quite remember off the top of my head. But there will be other body shells available which are already in the works when I get the time to do them. But this set will be available from the shop, through the Facebook page, and all the rest of it. Hope you enjoyed this small tuition on basically building one of these kits. Hope you found it useful and interesting, and hope that you feel confident enough to buy and build your own. As I say, transfers and paints also are available separately from Precision. Transfers a little bit more difficult at the moment, as Radley Models owner passed away recently, so I will be looking into possibly finding a supplier for those very soon.